What if the habit that most people consider the road to wealth actually leads to poverty? King Solomon saw a mistake that millions of people still make today. They spend years saving money, yet never become truly wealthy. Why does this happen? Why were some people able to rebuild fortunes after losing almost everything, while others could not become rich even with substantial savings? In this video, you will learn the secret of ancient merchants, understand why gold locked in a chest was considered a bad sign, and discover the principle that allowed money to generate more money. Toward the end, you will encounter Solomon's principle, a concept that can completely transform your understanding of wealth and change the way you view every dollar in your life. Most people spend their entire lives pursuing one goal. They want to accumulate enough money to finally feel secure. They believe there is some magical number beyond which anxiety disappears. The future becomes predictable, and financial problems never return. Some dream of $10,000, others of $100,000. Others of $1 million. The amounts differ, but the idea remains the same. The more money sits idle, the safer life seems. At first glance, this sounds reasonable. From childhood, we are taught to save, preserve, and prepare for difficult times. We are told that money should be stored rather than spent, that true success is measured by the size of one's savings, and that a person with a large financial reserve is secure. But there is one uncomfortable question that most people prefer not to ask. If keeping money makes people wealthier, why do so many people with savings continue to live in constant fear of the future? Why do some spend years saving every extra penny, yet remain dependent on salaries, pensions, or circumstances beyond their control, while others build fortunes without enormous cash reserves? This paradox existed long before banks, credit cards, and investment apps. It existed thousands of years ago when wealth was measured in gold, silver, land, harvests, and trade caravans. And it was then that certain wise men noticed a pattern that remains relevant today. They observed that money can serve two entirely different roles. In the first role, money is a tool. It moves, participates in exchange, creates new opportunities, helps acquire resources, knowledge, and relationships. In the second role, money becomes an object of worship. It is guarded, hidden, counted, and protected at any cost, outwardly. Two people may possess the same amount of money, yet a few years later their situations are completely different. One becomes stronger and wealthier. The other still guards the same reserve that once seemed like a guarantee of prosperity. The most surprising part is that many people never notice this trap. They sincerely believe that the main financial goal is to accumulate as much money as possible. They think money itself possesses some magical power, that the more of it lies unused, the safer life becomes. Yet history repeatedly demonstrates the opposite. Entire fortunes disappeared. Rulers' treasures vanished. Massive stores of gold and silver lost value. Financial empires collapsed when their owners relied too heavily on savings alone. At the same time, there were people who quickly rebuilt their prosperity after devastating losses. Their secret was not the size of their reserves. Their secret was that they understood something far more important than money itself. They understood the principles of its movement. This is where the story begins, one that can completely transform the conventional view of wealth. When most people hear the name Solomon, they think of wisdom, fair judgment, and legendary riches. They imagine magnificent palaces, countless treasures, and vaults filled with precious valuables. But few consider another question. How did a man who governed one of the wealthiest kingdoms of his time actually view money? Was his goal simply to collect gold? Did he seek to turn wealth into a motionless reserve? Or was there a principle behind his decisions that most people still overlook? Today, the deeper researchers study ancient sources and economic practices of that era, the more unusual the picture becomes. The concept of wealth as a pile of accumulated coins differs greatly from the understanding held by the most successful rulers and merchants of the ancient world. For them, wealth was not something static. It was like a river. As long as water flows, it remains clean and useful. When water stagnates, problems begin. And this view of money is the key to understanding one of the most overlooked financial principles in history, the principle that explains why some people save for decades without becoming truly wealthy, while others create lasting prosperity without enormous reserves. To understand this logic, however, we must first understand why gold in a chest was not always considered a sign of true wealth in the ancient world. If you ask a modern person what the primary symbol of wealth is, most will answer the same way: a large bank account, a substantial amount of cash, a huge reserve of money that can be seen and counted. We tend to believe that this is real prosperity. Yet thousands of years ago, the most successful merchants, landowners, and rulers viewed the matter differently. Imagine a person who owns hundreds of gold bars, but whose fields are abandoned, trade routes are empty, workshops stand idle, and the people around him create no value. Technically, he is rich. But what will happen in a few years? His gold will remain the same while the world around him continues moving forward. Others will build enterprises, make deals, develop crafts, acquire knowledge, and expand influence. Eventually, it becomes obvious that wealth is measured not by what lies in a chest, but by what continually creates new value. This is why ancient societies rarely viewed gold as the ultimate goal. It was merely a tool. Land produced harvests. Caravans generated profits. Workshops produced goods. Trade opened new markets. All these things were in motion and produced results. Money simply connected these processes. Solomon ruled a kingdom located at the crossroads of major trade routes. Goods, knowledge, technologies, and resources from many parts of the world passed through his lands. His wealth was not created because gold sat in treasuries. It was created through the continuous movement of people, goods, and capital. And here lies the principle that many people still miss today. Wealth begins to lose its power the moment it stops moving. This idea feels unusual because it contradicts the instinct to accumulate. When people receive money, their first impulse is to keep it, protect it, and hide it from risk. Yet the wisest financial thinkers throughout history understood that money is like blood in the body. Its value is revealed only when it circulates. From this understanding emerged what might be called the code of circulating wealth. According to this principle, money should never remain in one form for too long. It should continually move from one useful form to another. Today it becomes goods. Tomorrow it becomes knowledge. Later it helps acquire equipment, land, relationships, or new opportunities. Eventually it returns to money again, but in greater quantity. What is most interesting is that this process is often invisible. People see only the final result and call it luck. They see a wealthy person and assume he simply accumulated more money than everyone else. They do not see the dozens of cycles of capital movement that came before. Imagine two identical bags of gold. One person locks his bag in a vault and constantly checks that everything is still there. The other uses part of the gold for trade, part for developing skills, part for acquiring productive assets, and part for creating new income sources. After 1 year, the first person's gold will be almost unchanged. After 10 years, the difference will be enormous, not because the second person was born smarter, not because he was extraordinarily lucky, but because he understood the principle of movement. For this reason, many ancient sages viewed idle money almost as a lost opportunity. While funds sit unused, they do not work. They create no new value. They attract no new resources. They do not expand a person's possibilities. In essence, every unit of money asks its owner a question. What are you going to do with me next? Most people answer, I will keep you. A minority answer, I will put you to work. And from that difference grows an enormous gap in financial outcomes. However, a natural question arises. If the movement of money is so important, why do so many people remain attached to accumulation and fear using their resources for growth? The answer lies not in finance, but in psychology. Money creates a sense of control. When people see a certain amount in a bank, account, or a safe, the future seems more predictable. A feeling of security appears, an illusion emerges that dangers are under control, and this is precisely where the trap begins. Money starts serving a completely different function. Instead of being a tool, it becomes an object of emotional attachment. People stop seeing money as a means of creating opportunities. Their primary goal becomes preserving the amount at any cost. Gradually, fear of loss becomes stronger than the desire for growth, and at that moment, development stops. A person may continue working, saving, and accumulating, but their capital no longer moves. They become more like a guard protecting a reserve than a creator of prosperity. Solomon understood the danger of this mindset well. By observing merchants, landowners, and rulers, he noticed a pattern. Those who focused exclusively on preserving wealth eventually fell behind those who knew how to use resources wisely. The world never stands still. Markets change, technology changes. Opportunities change, circumstances change. And when money remains motionless for too long, its owner loses not only potential profit, but also the ability to see new possibilities. This leads to a principle that becomes increasingly visible in Solomon's philosophy of wealth. True wealth is not measured by the size of accumulated reserves. True wealth is measured by the ability to create a constant flow of value. This is where millions of people make a mistake. The mistake rarely looks dangerous. In fact, society often praises it. People are called careful, responsible, and prudent. They save diligently, avoid risk, and steadily increase their reserves. Everything appears correct, yet years, and sometimes decades, pass, and something strange becomes clear. The savings grow, financial freedom does not. The person still depends on work, still worries about the future, still fears unexpected expenses, still feels only a few unlucky, steps away from serious trouble. Why? Because accumulation and wealth creation are not the same thing. Many people confuse them. They assume that if the amount grows, prosperity grows as well. Reality is more complicated. A person may have substantial savings and still lack a system that creates new money. They may spend years increasing reserves while remaining financially vulnerable. The most dangerous aspect of this trap is that it is built on fear. Fear of losing what was earned. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear of having to start over. That fear transforms people into guardians of money instead of managers of it. At first, caution appears to protect capital. Gradually, however, caution begins to block every opportunity for growth. People postpone education, postpone developing new skills, postpone promising projects, postpone useful relationships, postpone anything that requires using resources. Each time there is a logical excuse. Now is not the right time. I need to save a little more. I should wait for a better moment. I need to feel completely safe first. But that moment almost never arrives because absolute security does not exist. This is why the most successful people throughout history focus not on eliminating all risk, but on creating new opportunities. Solomon understood this principle. He cared less about the amount of gold that could be counted today and more about the number of processes that would create value tomorrow, next year, and 10 years from now. His attention was directed not toward money itself, but toward flows. For most people, wealth means an amount. For a wise leader, wealth means movement. The difference seems small, but it determines financial destiny. Imagine two cities. One contains a huge warehouse filled with gold. It is heavily guarded, but little else happens. Trade is weak, production is minimal, innovation is rare. In the second city, there may be less gold, but deals are made every day. Workshops operate, crafts develop, new projects are built, new trade routes emerge. Which city will be richer 20 years later? The answer is obvious. Prosperity comes not from stockpiles, but from flows. This is why wise people throughout history sought to create mechanisms that worked independently of their constant involvement. They understood that money comes and goes, but a system for creating value can endure for decades. In essence, Solomon viewed wealth as a living network of interconnected processes. Trade strengthened production, production strengthened employment, employment increased consumption, consumption stimulated new transactions. Each element reinforced the others. This approach differs radically from the mindset of someone who simply stores money in reserve. One builds a system, the other protects an amount. One creates flows, the other depends on a stockpile. That is why many people with impressive savings never become truly wealthy. Their money remains a destination. For wise leaders, money is only a station along the journey. And there is one more principle that explains why some people build prosperity much faster than others. At first glance, it seems unfair. People often say that the rich become richer simply because they already have money. But when we examine the history of successful entrepreneurs, merchants, and investors, we notice something different. They buy what most people never notice. An ordinary person sees things. A wealthy person sees opportunities. An ordinary person evaluates current cost. A wealthy person evaluates future value. That difference creates enormous differences in outcomes. When most people receive additional money, they buy visible rewards, expensive possessions, status symbols, or short-term pleasures. Those who think in terms of flows ask a different question. What can increase my opportunities tomorrow? The answers vary. Knowledge, skills, experience, relationships, reputation, access to new markets, understanding of new technologies, all of these share one characteristic. They cannot be easily counted. And because they cannot be easily counted, most people underestimate them. Imagine two people receiving the same amount of money. One buys things that impress others. The other invests in things that strengthen his abilities. After a month, the difference is barely visible. After a year, it becomes obvious. After 10 years, it can transform an entire life. Solomon understood the value of such assets. That is why his name became associated not with gold, but with wisdom. Knowledge can create wealth again and again, even after money is lost. Experience reveals opportunities where others see only problems. Reputation opens doors that remain closed to most people, and these assets cannot be stolen, accidentally lost, or destroyed overnight. They continue working for years, creating ever more sources of value. This is why people who understand the principles of circulating wealth rarely bet exclusively on money. They invest resources in things that generate more resources. The deeper they understand this principle, the clearer another problem becomes. Most people know how to earn money. Very few know how to turn money into a system that works for them for years. Here, ancient wisdom intersects powerfully with modern life. Despite thousands of years of technological progress, human behavior toward money has changed surprisingly little. Banking apps, electronic payments, investment platforms, and instant transfers have appeared. But the central mistake remains the same. Most people still view money as the goal rather than the tool. The lesson of Solomon's philosophy is ultimately simple. Wealth is not determined by how much money you manage to keep. Wealth is determined by how much value you can create with the resources available to you. Money that merely sits still may create a sense of comfort, but only money that helps create new value can create true prosperity. When a person understands this difference, wealth no longer looks like a pile of accumulated resources. It becomes what the wisest leaders of history saw it as: a living flow of value, opportunity, growth, and creation.